Welcome to this week's OK at Work with myself, Sarah Sawyer, my colleague, Russell Berger, both attorneys at Offutt Kerman. And today we are talking about ICE enforcement actions and some changes with immigration policy that have come pretty swiftly and quickly since the Trump administration has taken office. It's on the headlines about ICE enforcement actions and worksite enforcement. I was in LA recently over the last couple of days visiting our LA office, and there were protests in downtown LA, blocking the highway. There's protests nationwide around these enforcement actions. Definitely a lot of employers asking, what do I do if ICE shows up at my door, either attempting to search for illegal immigrants or people who they think are subject to some type of deportation or enforcement action, or if they're trying to audit my I-9. So what do I do? Because the chance of that happening is rapidly increasing, and is definitely happening based on these changes. Starting with the ICE actions and deportation warrants, ultimately, I'm sure it can be very alarming and concerning when ICE shows up at a workplace. But it's important to know that there still are certain procedures and things that they need to follow in showing up. Then they need to have an actual warrant. They might have a warrant that shows that they can justify their presence, but there are certain procedures about whether they can enter, and there has to be either formal warrant signed by a judge, or there needs to be an ability for them to enter on premises with agreements. There's a lot of things that can be considered here. Them just showing up is not necessarily an ability for them to enter the premises and start taking people they think need to be deported, or things that you might be concerned about. If you have a concern as an employer, it's something you should be talking to an immigration attorney about, what their actual rights are, what they need to present to you if they show up, and what's necessary if they do show up at your door.
That's a lot, and it's a lot for employers to be thinking about and considering. I think one of the things that employers can do to be in front of this and be ahead of this is to just focus on I-9 compliance. That's something that's not new. That's been around for a while. I know the form changed a couple of years ago. But maintaining I-9 compliance, having the right documentation, saving it for the right amount of time, having it available and saved in case you have to deal with an audit of your business is definitely a best practice, definitely something that employers should be doing now. And at the same time, I think in addition to doing that, employers may want to consider going to E-Verify to confirm authorization to work status. It's not a requirement in every situation, but it is a software that's available and not particularly expensive that employers may want to consider using as well to ideally avoid the problem, and certainly to hedge on any business exposure or liability related to it. Because I used E-Verify and I've got confirmation that there's authorization to work, and I've done more than what I'm required to do. I'm in a good spot. And that also, I think, contributes to business continuity and less concern about the ICE raid coming because you've done the right things and your workers are authorized to work.
Yeah, and hopefully you have done the right things with your I-9s and followed that process that you just described, Russell. I think something that also that's coming up on work sites, depending on the dynamics, is also anyone else who might be on the work site, right? So you maybe feel very confident and good about your employees because you've done that process, but maybe you have contract employees that are employed by someone else, or you have patrons that come onto the premises that might fall into this category that might be subject to some of these enforcement actions. So that's something also to be considering, depending on the type of business you have or the type of facility that you run or whatever it might be. Also, if you've got subcontractors that you're working with that have employees, you may want to verify with them that they're following that process and confer with them to gauge the chances that something might happen or that there might be some type of enforcement action component there. Well, thanks, Russell, and we'll see you next time. But also just want to do a quick plug. We've been doing OK Word for a long time, and now we're a podcast as well. So you can find us on Spotify and listen to OK at Work and not see our smiling faces whenever you are in the car on the go. It's definitely should check it out.
Like and subscribe.
Thanks, Russell. See you next time.
Thanks, Sarah.